Hi, I'm Siobhan and you're watching Siobhan Speaks, where I talk pretty openly about my experience of child sexual abuse and how to make life work afterwards. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 reasons why children find it so difficult to tell someone if they're being sexually abused. By the end of this video, you should have an understanding of why a child who you could be worried about doesn't feel able to tell you yet. The first big obstacle that gets in the way of children telling you if they're being abused is a fear of being blamed or judged by you. I remember how sure I was that anyone I could tell would decide that it was my fault because I felt that it was my fault. Children feel an intense sense of personal responsibility over abuse, which is why if a child does disclose to you, then the best thing you can do is to reassure them that it isn't their fault and that you don't see them any differently now. Remember, this probably has nothing to do with you personally. It's not like the child has singled you out as being untrustworthy or critical or mean. It's just that they're convinced that if they tell anyone, the result will be the same. The second obstacle could be a sense of wanting to protect the abuser. This obviously won't apply in every case, but it does tend to apply in situations where the abuser is a relative or in cases of child sexual exploitation, where the young person, the child, not knowing any better, believes that they are in a loving relationship with the abuser, the so-called boyfriend model. I did feel a sense of loyalty towards the person who abused me, who was my father, because he was my father. I mean, that should be pretty self-explanatory. He did say that if I would tell someone, then he would commit suicide, and I didn't want something else to feel guilty about. Most people assume that children probably hate the person who's abusing them, but that isn't always the case. And this is one example of how sexual abuse creates such painful, twisted feelings for a child, such contradictory feelings. And you need to untangle that if there's any hope of you helping a child to disclose. The third barrier to disclosure that I don't hear anyone talking about is the reality that some abuse victims have a physical response to the abuse. Children don't understand that the body is designed to respond to touch in a certain way and that this is not the same as consent. Due to the different power dynamics involved, child abuse is always 100% the fault of the abuser and never the child. However, when you are the child in this situation and your body responds to the abuse, that's very difficult for you to come to terms with as an adult and to understand that that's not the same as you wanting it, even if the abuser told you that you did. If you're a survivor watching this, and when I tell you that the abuse was definitely not your fault, it kind of goes over your head, then please watch my video on the reasons why we feel responsible for abuse as adults and my personal reasons why it took me so long to realise that actually it wasn't my fault and there's nothing I could have done differently. Thank you for watching until the end. If you like this kind of content, then please give it a thumbs up. You can also click subscribe to be updated with my newest stuff. I am back on the weekly videos now after a long break, so I hope to see you next week.
Well, Siobhan Pyburn from Southampton was 17 when she started her campaign. 10 years later, she's one of the country's most prominent female activists, speaks at conferences and trains professionals.